And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, March 13th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contributions you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to talk about what teams made the best move so far, what teams have had the best offseason so far. In the second part of the show, we will get into talking about last night's game between the Thunder and the Celtics. The Thunder winning 118 to 112, and we'll talk about some of the other NBA action as well from the past couple of days, because I know with all the NFL stuff, we've been so zoned in on that we've kind of, not given the other sports some love. But we'll get into some NBA stuff. We'll talk about the top remaining free agents left. I know we covered the quarterbacks yesterday, but there's some receivers, some other players that I wanted to talk about who's still out there on the market that could be, signed within the next, couple days. Within the next couple days. So we'll get into that. We'll also talk about the Dodgers extending Dave Roberts, their manager, to a 4-year extension. And then in the final part of the show, I will continue my season overviews, and today we will be covering the Arizona Cardinals. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about what teams have had the best offseason so far. So there's definitely several that I wanted to cover today. And starting off, we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. So I've liked what they've done so far. Yesterday, we had another signing. They signed Evan Ingram, the tight end, who recently got cut by Jacksonville, to a 2-year, $23 million contract, $16.5 million guaranteed. And I like this deal a lot for the Broncos. I think they still need to add another weapon to this offense. I definitely think that running back is a position that they are going to address at some point, because we saw Javonte Williams, he signed with the Cowboys recently. But I feel like that's a position that they could address at some point. Now, it was kind of a running back by committee last year, but no one really separated themselves from the pack. You would have hoped if you were a Broncos fan that maybe it was going to be Javonte Williams, and he showed promise, his rookie season, but then, obviously he's gotten hurt, and now he ended up leaving and going to the Cowboys. So we'll see what he ends up doing in Dallas. We'll talk about the Cowboys offseason at some point, probably tomorrow. But I really like what I've seen from the Broncos. Back to the original point. Evan Ingram, they needed another weapon on this offense. Now, he dealt with his own injuries last season, and, he showed promise when he first got to Jacksonville. So I do think the Broncos will get a better player than what we saw last year. And it's really all about now continuing to build around your young quarterback. And Bo Nix had a great rookie season. The Broncos made the playoffs for the first time since they won the Super Bowl. So I like that move. Continue to build around your young quarterback. And they also signed a couple of San Francisco 49ers. Well, they signed a former 49er as well. They signed Trent Sherfield, but more of a depth guy. But they signed Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Ufanga. Now, both of those guys coming off of injuries. Dre Greenlaw didn't play that much last year because he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. But he's going to be part of the replacement for Cody Barton, who left in free agency. He signed with the Tennessee Titans. But if you can get a Dre Greenlaw, that's not exactly what we got pre-Achilles injuries, but if you could get a Dre Greenlaw that can come in and be productive, I mean, that's a good ad for the Broncos. And he only played in 2 games last season. So hopefully more time away from the injury, he could be even better next year. And then Ufanga dealt with some injuries as well. That's a guy they could add to their secondary, which of course is led by the best corner in the NFL, and Patrick Surtain. But yeah, he tore his ACL last season, missed 10 games in 2024 with other injuries. I think he was dealing with a wrist injury as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, missed some time. But hey, if they could be like how they were with the 49ers, I think I like those signings. And then they re-signed defensive tackle DJ Jones as well. So yeah, I like what the Broncos have done so far. Now let's see what they continue to do. Now another team that I really liked what they've done is the Minnesota Vikings. Key weaknesses on the team last year. Well, key weakness on the team last year was on the interior when it comes to the offensive line. And they went out and they signed a couple of offensive linemen from the Colts. They signed Will Frears from the Colts, right guard, for a 5-year, $88 million contract. And then they also signed longtime center for the Colts, Ryan Kelly, as well, on a 2-year, $18 million deal. Now, we don't know what the Vikings are going to do at quarterback. Is J.J. McCarthy going to be the day one starter next season? That's something we have to pay attention to because supposedly they are lurking in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. And of the teams that have interest in Rodgers that we know of, the Vikings would definitely be the best spot because of their roster. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I think right now it's either going to come down to the Steelers or the Giants when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. But if he goes to the Vikings, like I said, I think that's the best spot for him. But upgrading on the offensive line, very important. And if you're going in with a young quarterback, you want to make sure he's protected. You don't want another Caleb Williams situation. And look at what J.J. McCarthy is part of the same draft class as Caleb Williams and Jane Daniels, and look what those teams have done for their young quarterbacks now. The Bears have added 3 offensive linemen, and the Commanders went out and they traded for Laramie Tunsil. So you want to make sure you're protecting your own cornerback. And this is technically going to be J.J. McCarthy's rookie season if he does end up starting for the Vikings. But the Vikings did that, which I really like. They also re-signed guys in their secondary. They re-signed Byron Murphy and Harrison Smith, but they also added to their defensive line. They added Jonathan Allen, who was recently cut by the Commanders. They bring him in on a 3-year, $60 million contract. I like that. And then they also brought in Javon Hargrave, who was previously with the 49ers, on a 2-year, $30 million deal. So similar to the Bears, they address the offensive line and the defensive line. And the Vikings defense was already good last year, so you're only enhancing it. But actually, along with Byron Murphy, they also added Isaiah Rodgers from the Eagles as well on a 2-year, $15 million contract. And they brought back Aaron Jones as well. So, yeah, now it's really all about who's going to be starting next year. Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? And right now, it seems that way, but anything can happen. The Bears, I mentioned them. We talked about them already this week, but they are another team that I really like what they've done. Offensive line was their biggest weakness last year, and they went out and they added 3. They signed Drew Dalman from the Falcons on a 3-year, $42 million deal. They signed Joe Thuney. Well, actually, no, they traded for Joe Thuney, who's been a very good guard in this league, with the Patriots, and then was with the Chiefs. They got him, and then they also got Jonah Jackson from the Rams as well. So you're hoping that with the better offensive line and better coaching, that the Bears are going to take that next step. And then, of course, the defensive line, they added Grady Jarrett and Dayo Adenabo. Jarrett was a 3-year, $43.5 million contract, $28.5 million guaranteed. And then Adenabo was 3 years, $48 million, $32 million guaranteed. And he's going to be the guy that's going to be opposite of Montez Sweat. You're hoping that you unlock his potential. Another team, I want to see them do more on offense, but I do like what the Patriots have done. They added a lot of guys on defense. They added Robert Spillane and Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, who we saw he had a big Super Bowl performance as well. Harold Landry III, who was cut by the Titans, and you figured with Mike Vrabel now in New England that he was going to end up going there. He signed a 3-year, $43.5 million contract, $26 million guaranteed. So that's to help out the pass rush. Robert Spillane is a tackling machine. He had 5.5 sacks last season. They bring him in. They bring in Carlton Davis to be opposite of their young corner Christian Gonzalez. They did bring in Morgan Moses to improve that offensive line, and he was with the Jets last season. And that's something that they got to continue to address. The offense, they really have to, prioritize the offense. And maybe that's what we're going to see through the draft. Depending on how the first few picks go, the Patriots can be the team that ends up with Travis Hunter, or they could go with Tetsurola McMillan. I feel like that's what they're going to do with their first pick, is they are going to take a playmaker. They're definitely going to have to do that. But we'll see what they do. They did also sign Josh Dobbs to be a backup to Drake May. I'm okay with that. They did bring in Matt Collins. And Matt Collins did have a very good year with the Bills, leading the team in touchdown receptions. So they did at least bring in a weapon, but you want to see them do a little bit more. I like what the Commanders have done, trading for Laramie Tunsil, getting Deebo Samuel. They are improving that offense. Also got to continue to build up that defense as well, but those are two major moves that I like. The Buccaneers bringing in Hassan Reddick. You hope that he could be better than what he was with the Jets last season, but they brought back Chris Godwin. That receiving core is very good with Godwin, Mike Evans, and Jalen McMillan. They also did, and Levante David they brought back as well. And I actually did want to throw in the Giants as well. I think the Giants have done okay. I kind of like what they've done. They bolstered their secondary because they added Javon Holland, who was arguably the best safety in free agency. They signed him to a 3-year deal. And then they also signed Paulson Adenabo from the Saints on a 3-year, $54 million deal. And he was arguably the number one corner on the market, and they brought him in. So you bolstered your secondary. They did add a couple of defensive linemen. They added Chauncey Goldston from the Cowboys, who had had a career high 5.5 sacks last season. So, that helps them out. They also brought in Roy Robertson Harris as a depth piece on the defensive line. They had a couple of offensive linemen that are just for depth, and then they re-signed Darius Slayton to a 3-year deal. So, they did make some moves. They did improve the team. But now we got to see what they do with the quarterback. If they can nail the quarterback position, they will definitely win more than 3 games next season, even though that schedule is impossible. But I did like what they did. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about the teams that you liked, what they've done so far in the offseason. And it's not over yet. We still got the draft, of course, and there's still some guys out there that can be signed, but that's who I think has done well so far. Now, there's some other teams maybe I left out, but that's just who I put in terms of the teams that I really like what they've done. So we are going to take our first break of the show now, and then when we come back, we will talk some NBA. The Thunder defeating the Celtics last night. We'll get into that. I'll give you my thoughts and then some of the other NBA action as well. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about some NBA action. We've kind of been all focused on NFL stuff, but we possibly had a finals preview last night between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Boston Celtics, and the Thunder got the win. Thunder won 118 to 112 over the Celtics, and might have been a finals preview. Now, you don't want to discount the Cavs because the Cavs just continue to win, and we'll talk about them in this segment as well. But it's possible. And the one thing that I was hearing after the game is just how, the Celtics, or not the Celtics, but the Thunder were really just forcing the Celtics to just take threes. And how physical they were with the Celtics. And kind of put them off their spot. The Celtics, they took 63 threes last night. They went 20 of 63 from three. And, if the Celtics don't hit their three, that's a problem. All of their starters were almost in double digits last night for the Celtics. Drew Holiday had 9 points, but he went 4 for 10. Jason Tatum, of course, another 30-point performance. Jaylen Brown, though, he only had 10 points. Now, I believe he's also dealing with a little bit of a knee injury. But still, you needed him to step up. He went 0 for 5 from 3, and then he went 5 for 15 from the field in total. Derek White had 22 points. Al Horford had 18. And then on the bench, the Celtics really didn't get a lot of production. You look at the Thunder, and their bench stepped up. You got 11 points from Isaiah Hartenstein. Isaiah Joe also had 11 points. Kenrick Williams also had 10. So, bench points, Thunder beat the Celtics there in that category. And then, of course, your two studs, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had 34 points, and Chet Holmgren had 23. But the Thunder, I feel like some people still don't believe in them. I think, when we get to the playoffs, we'll see what happens. And this obviously is just one game. This isn't a series. But the Thunder are 2-0 against the Celtics this year. Now, things can change if they meet again down the road. I think it would be a very competitive series. And, looking on social media, many people are saying, can this be the finals? Because this would be a great finals. Now, I think if you got OKC and Cleveland, I think that could also be a great NBA finals. But for some people, you're going to say, well, it's not like we're getting, for some of the older fans or the casual fans, they're saying, well, it's not like we're getting, LeBron James against Kevin Durant. But it doesn't matter. They are two of the best teams. And then the Celtics, obviously, are right there too. And it's tough to rank them for me, obviously, because, I'm not super invested into the NBA like, some of you guys watching this are. But you do have to give respect to what the Thunder and the Cavs are doing. They have been the best teams all year. The Celtics, obviously, are NBA champions. But right now, record-wise, the other two teams are doing better. And the Cavs just continue to win games. They're on their third double-digit winning streak this season. And they could be winning 70 games this year. It's possible. But that was definitely a big win. And especially, in the Celtics house at TD Garden, that was a big win. And, the Thunder are coming off of a split with the Nuggets. So that's a team that they could match up with at some point in the playoffs. That'd be a tough series. But this was definitely, a big win for them. And to be 2-0 against the Celtics, it's not going to mean anything once you get to the playoffs and, if you meet up with them down the road again. But still, you got to take that into account. And for the Celtics, this could be a wake-up call for them. They weren't 100% healthy going into this game. Both teams weren't. Both teams were missing players in this game. The Thunder didn't have Jalen Williams. The Celtics, they didn't have Kristaps Porzingis for this game. So if both squads are fully healthy, hopefully that's for the NBA Finals if they do match up against each other. But we'll see. But let me know what you guys think, though, about this game, because this was a very good game. And, the Thunder basically, they were basically leading the whole game. The Celtics, I think, I'm trying to see when they, at one point when the Celtics had the lead. But, yeah, it was back and forth pretty much the whole way. But the Thunder were able to come away with the win. So, and that's what you're going to get if they do match up against each other in the finals. I think that could be a 7-game series. But some of the other NBA action, I did want to go back to Tuesday night because the Pacers won on a 4-point play by Tyrese Haliburton. It was inbounded to him. There was not that much time left. Chucks up a 3-point shot, knocks it down, and he was fouled on the play. And, of course, he hits the free throw. And I was watching a little bit of his interview on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. And, he was saying how when they were reviewing it, it was kind of like, I don't know what exactly they were reviewing, or why they were reviewing it. But I know that, what he was saying was it was like, because it was taking so long, it's kind of like he was getting iced as a kicker. But he made the free throw. They ended up winning. And, the Pacers, they're going to be a team that's a problem in the playoffs. And I'm saying that just because of a guy that does follow the Knicks loosely. But right now, the Bucks and the Pacers are tied record-wise. The Bucks, I think, have the tiebreaker over the Pacers. Because I think, do they play again? Yes, they do play again. They play again on Saturday. So I think that's for the tiebreaker. So that's huge. And the Pacers also have the 76ers coming up tomorrow night. So, I would think they should win that game. But you never know. So, yeah, right now they're tied record-wise. But Saturday's a big game. And this was the first-round matchup we got last year. But, the Bucks were so banged up. You wonder what would have happened if, both teams were healthy. So it's possible we get that in the first round, but I did want to bring that up because that was an unbelievable play, that 4-point play. The Cavs, they just continue to win, right? They are on right now. They've won 15 in a row. They had to pull off a comeback against the Nets. Things were getting a little scary there, but the Cavs were able to pull off a comeback. They didn't have Donovan Mitchell, which was to be able to come back despite not having him, that was big. They knock off the Nets, and then last night. I brought up the Knicks. I was watching them, and they had to go into overtime with the Trailblazers, and they're still without Jalen Brunson, of course. And they were down 113-111. And Mikal Bridges, who has been widely criticized this year by how he's played, had a big game last night, and he hit the game-winning shot. Game-winning three-pointer. Knicks win 114-113. They've won 2 in a row. Knock off the Trailblazers 114-113. And like I said, Bridges came up big. Karl Anthony Towns 21 points last night. OG Anunoby 23 points. Every single starter was in the double digits. Josh Hart was not great shooting the basketball. He was 4 for 14, but he had 11 points. He also had 11 rebounds. So there was that, and then you had Deuce McBride also 11 points. Not really much production out of the bench. Mitchell Robinson had 3 points off the bench. Shamet and Cameron Payne both had 6. But like I said when we talked about the Knicks, they just got to tread water until Brunson comes back. And they're in a great spot. They're probably going to be the 3rd seed. Right now, the Pacers, the Pistons, and the Bucks are all 5.5 games back of them for the 3. I think the Knicks should be okay. And I think they have enough to get by. I mean, if Bridges continues to step up like he did, and he also, kind of called out Tom Thibodeau for playing the starters way too long, which is something that, he's done. Called him out, and he went out and had a big game. You want to keep these guys fresh. You don't want to run these guys into the ground because that's what happened last year. That's what happened last year in the playoffs, and then they were really shorthanded. But I think part of it was just guys really just got hurt. I mean, I don't think you can make that argument, but then you see Josh Hart, playing with his hair on fire in the playoffs last year, and really just every single time he's on the court. And, he got hurt as well, but, he played through it. But, if Bridges could step up, Karl Anthony Towns being back, OG Anunoby's had some big games of late. And obviously I did just mention Josh Hart. But this team without Brunson, obviously without Brunson, they're not a championship team. But, they could at least get by and then just hope that he comes back, for the playoffs, which he should. So, but yeah, big win for the Knicks last night. The Timberwolves, they knocked off the Nuggets. They won 115-95. Clippers got a win, 119-104 over the Heat. But yeah, I mean, the biggest game from yesterday was, of course, the Thunder and the Celtics. We will be getting Lakers-Bucks tonight. No LeBron. So we'll see if Luke is dealing with a little bit of an injury too, but I think he should be playing, I would imagine. But that's a big game tonight. You got Warriors-Kings as well. Magic and the Pelicans, Bulls and the Nets, Pistons and the Wizards. But yeah, the two TNT games tonight. That's what to focus on. Really, Lakers-Bucks is what's to focus on. So yeah, let me know what you guys think though about a possible finals preview, the matchup between the Thunder and the Celtics last night, some of the other NBA action that's happened recently. Let me know in the comments some of your thoughts. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will get back to NFL stuff, and we will talk about who are the top remaining free agents left on the market and where they could potentially end up. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the top remaining free agents and where they could potentially end up. So we did talk a lot about Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers yesterday, and there's still no... Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. There is some movement. There's really no movement on the Aaron Rodgers side of things. But with Russell Wilson, he actually is scheduled to meet with the Cleveland Browns. So that's interesting because they traded for Kenny Pickett. They did a backup quarterback swap with the Eagles. They traded DTR to the Eagles, and they got Kenny Pickett. And right now they have the number 2 overall pick. So I don't know if they're going to take a quarterback. If they end up bringing in Russell Wilson, you have Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett. I mean, are you going to then take a rookie? A rookie quarterback? Well, a rookie quarterback, not a rookie. Obviously, you're taking a rookie, but then is there a scenario where they take best player available? Do they take an Abdul Carter and pair him up with Myles Garrett? Unless the Titans take him, which we still don't really know what the Titans are doing. But still, I thought that was interesting. So he's meeting with the Browns, and then he's also scheduled to meet with the Giants. And I'll just say this with Russell Wilson. If the relationship with the Steelers is not great, because he's kind of looked at as, I guess, the backup plan, because they wanted Fields. Now you're hearing that they want Aaron Rodgers. And Russ is kind of just sitting there like, all right, well, I guess I'm the fall guy, or I'm the backup plan in case, those two options don't work. Well, now Fields signed with the Jets, and, we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. So Russell Wilson, I think he is probably going to end up with the Giants. But if he goes to Cleveland, I think that would be interesting too. Russell Wilson in Cleveland. And then, of course, with Rodgers, I don't know. We got to wait. We got to continue to wait. But he was released by the Jets. Cooper Kupp officially released by the Rams. That is probably one of the top free agents, is Cooper Kupp. He kind of goes at the top of the list, or near the top, especially when it comes to the wide receivers and who's left. I mean, there's many teams he can end up on. Now, he could still stay out in L.A., and he could sign with the Chargers. Maybe the Chargers bring him in. The Chargers actually brought back an old friend. They signed Mike Williams yesterday. And with Keenan Allen still out there, who's another free agent, imagine they brought back Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on cheap deals. I mean, listen, if I'm Justin Herbert, I would be okay with that. I would be okay with that because you have familiarity there. If Mike Williams could stay healthy, he knows Justin Herbert. They have that rapport. I liked that deal for the Chargers. But Keenan Allen, where's he going to go? He said he's either going to go to L.A. or he's going to go back to the Bears. So I think he's either going to the Chargers or he's going back to the Bears, which, I mean, with the Bears, what they're doing, and they got Ben Johnson now, I'd maybe go back and play with them. But, hey, listen, if Jim Harbaugh says, hey, if you want to come in at this price, and Keenan Allen's like, you know what, I want to reunite with Herbert. You have Herbert. You got Herbert throwing to McConkey, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams. Definitely an upgrade, getting some old friends back. We have Fantasy Icon in the chat. He says, will Kupp stay healthy, though? How much does Kupp get for how long? I mean, I would think like the years won't be. I mean, it could be maybe a 2-year deal or something, maybe 2 or 3. Money wise, I really couldn't tell you. I mean, he's not going to be making. It's going to be affordable for the team, And will he stay healthy? Look, that's something that's been a problem for him the last few years, is staying healthy. Now, I don't think it's him just suffering these non-contact injuries. Like he's pulling something. 2023, yes. But last year he got hurt because of how, he was tackled against the Cardinals. 2 for $25 million, maybe. But I think Kupp can stay healthy. I definitely think he can. But I think the Chargers could be a good spot for him. I know the Cowboys were floated around, but then I don't know. I saw something that said they're not in on Kupp, and then there's something that says they could be in on Kupp. But he wants to go to a contender, I would imagine. So, maybe he wants to stay out on the West Coast. Like I said, you go to the Chargers, but I saw the Vikings. Maybe I brought that up yesterday. Imagine him, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison. I mean, that would, if J.J. McCarthy's a starter, and you also have T.J. Hawkinson and Aaron Jones, and you improve the offensive line. I mean, if J.J. McCarthy can't succeed with that offense, then I don't know what to tell you. But, maybe he goes there. There's a lot of teams that could be a fit for him. The Patriots desperately need wide receiver help. But the Patriots are not necessarily a contender. Now, I definitely do think with the moves that they've made, I think they are going to be a better team. But they have to they got to upgrade that offense. Fantasy also says, I think, Seattle. Seattle, I think, was also mentioned, too. I mean, they just traded DK Metcalf. There's no Tyler Lockett anymore. I mean, you need another receiver besides Jackson Smith and Jigba, to help out Darnold. So if you bring in Cooper Kupp, I don't think that'd be a bad move. You have some of the other quarterbacks that are still available along with Rodgers and Wilson. You got Jameis Winston, which, honestly, if I'm a Giant fan, which I am, if you don't get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers for some reason, I'd bring in Jameis Winston. Why not? Why not? Make things fun again. A-Raj to Kupp. Yeah, I mean, if Kupp ended up going to the Steelers, Rodgers goes there, that could work. You have DK Metcalf and George Pickens, the 50-50 guys, the 50-50 ball guys, and then you got Kupp over the middle with Pat Freiermuth. You take that. But yeah, Jameis Winston, that would be my next option if it's not Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. But supposedly the Giants would want Flacco, which, sorry. If the Giants were a contender and let's say they had a star quarterback that went down and Flacco was the backup, that'd be different. But, yeah, no, I don't know if I want to have January Joe on the Giants. You were with the Jets. It didn't work out for you. Don't come to the Giants. But it's just crazy how that could be the scenario where the Giants don't end up with Rodgers or Wilson and they end up with Joe Flacco instead. And Fantasy also agrees. Winston in New York would be gold. I would take it. It would make things exciting. Although he would throw a lot of interceptions, which would make you want to pull every strand of hair out of your head. But still, I would take that. Some of the running backs that are still available, you got J.K. Dobbins, who, of course, was a comeback player of the year candidate with the Chargers. It's not going to be the Chargers he's going to go back to because, they signed Najee Harris. But I don't know where he could end up. I mean, I feel like he could be a complement to another running back. I know I just talked about the Giants. If they brought him in and paired him up with Tyrone Tracy, I don't think that would be that bad. I'm trying to think of who else could maybe bring him in. Maybe the Browns. Fantasy Icon has now given us a follow. We appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams, and then you got Nick Chubb as well. What's Nick Chubb's market? I feel like somebody is going to sign him. I know when I was watching the free agent frenzy on NFL Network, they talked about the Saints really don't have another running back now besides Kamara. I mean, they have Kendre Miller, but they did release Jamal Williams. Maybe they want to pair someone up with Kamara. It's possible. Kareem Hunt's also a free agent. Gus Edwards, Alexander Madison, Cam Akers, Travis Homer. Kyle Juszczyk will definitely get picked up. I saw something that said maybe the Chargers could be interested. I feel like that's definitely a Jim Harbaugh signing, and he did play with the Ravens, Juszczyk, so he was with the Harbaugh already. So, Chargers brought him in. He's a guy that, plays a unique position. I guess if you want to call the fullback position unique. But he can make plays. He could definitely make plays. If you put in some plays for him, he can catch the ball. So I think he could be someone that could help out a team. And then you also got Miles Sanders as well out there. The Panthers released him. They actually brought in Rico Dowdle. So Dowdle goes to the Panthers. So it's going to be Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. And then, Jonathan Brooks, of course, tore his ACL again. So he's really not going to be a factor next season until, I guess, late in the year, if at all. And then some of the wide receivers, we talked about Kupp and Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett. I think he goes back to not go back, but he reunites with Pete Carroll. I think that's what's going to happen because the Raiders need wide receiver help. Obviously, he's not really a needle mover, but still, a veteran guy that you could bring in. I think that makes sense. Deontay Johnson is also out there. I mean, he got passed around last year, with the Panthers. Then he was with who was he with first? I think he was with the Ravens, and then he was with the Texans. Yeah, so he was all over the place. So we'll see if any team picks him up. Amari Cooper, that's interesting. Could the Cowboys maybe bring back Amari Cooper? I could see that on a cheap deal, maybe. Opposite of CeeDee Lamb. Listen, they brought back Zeke for 1 year. So maybe, they bring back Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper could definitely still play. And I'm curious to see where Stephon Diggs ends up. Somebody's going to sign him, right? Where is Diggs going? That is a good question, Fantasy Icon. I don't know. I don't really know. The Green Bay Packers, I think, were a team coming in that I think they need wide receiver help. They need a upgrade at that position because none of the guys really took on that number one role last year. So, maybe they sign one of these guys on a cheap deal. And then they kind of go through some of the other positions as well. So Tyler Conklin's out there. Team needs a tight end. Offensive tackles, you got Cam Robinson, Tyron Smith, and Jarek Wills. We'll see where they could potentially end up. Mekhi Becton, who was productive when the Eagles moved him in to the interior on the offensive line. You got him out there. Tevin Jenkins from the Bears. Brandon Sheriff from the Jaguars. Will Hernandez, Shaq Mason. Will Hernandez was a former Giant. Brandon Sheriff, that was a guy I remember a lot of Giant fans wanted him. So it would be kind of funny if it went full circle and the Giants brought him in because they do need an interior offensive lineman. And then edge rushers, you got Von Miller out there, Zadarius Smith, Azeez Ojulari, Dante Fowler, Matthew Judon, Dennis Gardick, and Josh Uche. Calais Campbell, Eric Kendricks, who was with the Cowboys, Rasul Douglas. A team's definitely going to pick him up. Asante Samuel Jr., Mike Hilton, Stephon Gilmore. Those are your corners that are available. And then for safeties, you got Justin Simmons, Julian Blackmon. So, we'll see what happens. But I think the biggest, guys that are out there are, the quarterbacks, obviously. And actually, I do have some breaking news. Speaking of quarterbacks. All right, so you ready for this? The Pittsburgh Steelers have signed a quarterback. They have signed Mason Rudolph. They signed him back a 2-year, $8 million deal. Now, there were some rumors out there that, or not rumors, but reports out there that the Steelers could bring him back as a backup. But, and also with the potential to actually start. Well, they bring him back. So does that mean that they are out on the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes? I don't know. But now their quarterback room consists of Mason Rudolph and Kyle Allen. So, yeah. We'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think, though. Where do you think some of these where do you think these top free agents could go? So we just saw Mason Rudolph signed with the Steelers. But does that mean that they're out on Aaron Rodgers? Not necessarily. But if Mason Rudolph is a starter for the Steelers next year, that's not good. So we are going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we will talk some baseball. We'll talk about Dave Roberts receiving a contract extension from the Dodgers. So we'll shift over to baseball for a bit. Fantasy in the chat says to mentor Rudolph. I really don't think at this point Mason Rudolph needs mentoring. Mason Rudolph is a backup. That's what he is. That can win you some games. Because look what he did for the Steelers down the stretch in 2023. He won 3 straight games. They made the playoffs, and then they lost to the Bills. But yeah, we'll talk some baseball when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are now going to talk about Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, receiving a 4-year contract extension. And, this is coming off of a World Series championship. He's now had 2 as the manager of the Dodgers. And this will take him through the 2029 season. The total value is $32.4 million. Annual value is $8.1 million, which is the highest ever for an MLB manager. So I think this edges out Craig Counsell for the Cubs for the highest contract amongst active managers, I think. And like I said, coming off of a World Series championship, 2 championships in 5 years. First one was in 2020, the COVID season. Under Dave Roberts, Dodgers have had 4 National League pennants. They made it to other World Series besides the ones that they've won. They, played against the Red Sox and the Astros in 2017 and 2018, lost back-to-back years, which was tough. But, now it doesn't matter because, obviously Dodger fans would have liked to have won those World Series, but, now you've won a couple since then. And he's got the highest regular season winning percentage among managers with 250-plus games at .627. It's very good. And, he's still going to receive some heat at times, but a lot of people, it's kind of like with the Yankees and Aaron Boone, except the Yankees and Aaron Boone have not won together yet since he's become the manager. But, before Dave Roberts won, Dave Roberts would get criticized a lot. And it's New York and LA. Those are big markets, and the fans expect, to win basically every year. And now with the team that the Dodgers have, they really are expected to win every year. There's no excuse. And, for a while it was like, is Dave Roberts ever going to get over the hump with this team? Because it felt like it was just never going to happen. A lot of early playoff exits. They did win during the COVID season. Like, even after they won the COVID year, many people look at that as, that doesn't really count because it was a 60-game season. But you can't say anything now. Because they won last year. And they are the favorites to win this year. And there's no surprise. This team has a ton of talent, and you could complain, and believe me, I complain too about it, how they just defer money and they could just, sign whoever. And I've talked about, when teams are meeting with the players from overseas, and it's kind of like a waste of time because you already know that they're going to sign with the Dodgers. Yamamoto and Sasaki. All these teams take the time to meet with these players just for them to sign with the Dodgers. That does annoy me. Because if you're going to sign with the Dodgers, then just sign with the Dodgers. Like, don't waste other teams' time then. But, this is going to be a team that is going to be hunted. They're going to be teams are going to do their best to try to knock them off. And we'll see if they're successful. There was no team that won 100 games last year. I think that's going to change this year. I think the Dodgers should win 100-plus games. They should. I don't know what their exact over-under is, but, you figure they're going to win over 100 games if everybody stays healthy. They have a ton of pitching depth, both in the rotation and in the bullpen. You got 3 MVP candidates in Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani's, of course, working his way back, from some injuries. We talked about that recently. They brought back Teoscar Hernandez, who I think is a very underrated player. And I know a lot about Teoscar Hernandez because, with his time in the AL East and, when he was with Seattle and with the Dodgers and, of course, having to match up with him in the World Series, I knew he was going to be a problem. And he was a problem. But, like I said, there is no excuse this year with the Dodgers. If they fall short of winning a championship, it's a disappointment. Because of the team that they have. Now, you could say, well, they won the year before. I get that. But you could say this team that they have right now is better than the team last year. You signed Blake Snell. You signed Roki Sasaki. Tyler Glasnow and Shohei Ohtani will be in the rotation. Ohtani at some point. We'll say when. You added arguably the best reliever on the market in Tanner Scott. They should go out there and win. They should win this year. Now, if they don't, then you go and you try to win it in 2025. You go and you sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Kyle Tucker. The fact that they were in on the Juan Soto sweepstakes, though, and Soto said that the Mets didn't offer him the most. So that makes you wonder, who was it then? Was it the Dodgers then? Could you imagine Juan Soto if he went to L.A.? With Freeman and Betts and Ohtani? Then it's really like, what's the point of me watching for the season then? But thankfully, that did not happen. Now, it does hurt that, as a Yankee fan, he went to the Mets, but if he went to the Dodgers, I think that would have probably been like the worst outcome. But yeah, is there pressure on the Dodgers this year? I think in some people's eyes there's pressure because of the team that you have. But they are just coming off of winning a championship. If they didn't win last year, then I think there's definitely, you could make the argument there's definitely pressure. But this team is loaded. And Dave Roberts, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. This team is always going to be competitive unless they have a year where they just get ravaged by injuries. That's really the only time that you'll probably see the Dodgers miss out on the playoffs. If they just have so many injuries, that's just too hard to overcome. Because they have this window now where they can go and they could be the first team to repeat in a long time since the Yankees. They could do that. Now, the National League is very tough. They got some teams in their own division they got to worry about with their pitching and, some of the lineups that they got to go up against. Because the Padres, they came close to knocking them off last year. So you got them. The Diamondbacks, they improved their pitching staff. The Mets are going to be better. The Braves, the Phillies. There's some good teams in the National League. The American League, not so much. Right now, the Yankees, I going into spring training, I said, yeah, I mean, you could say they're the best team in the American League on paper. But now with all the injuries, they've come back down to the pack. And with some of the moves that other teams have made, they're right there with the Yankees. But I think right now, the Dodgers are the clear-cut favorite. National League is the tougher league of the two. I think the American League will still win the All-Star game because that's what they've done for years. Now, there was a brief period where the National League won, but the American League, for the most part, has dominated the All-Star game. And I think that's going to continue. Even though you could say, well, look at the National League stars that we have, but I don't know. So, I don't know. I wouldn't say there's pressure for the Dodgers, but I think last year was huge for the Dodgers because had they lost the World Series, that would have been another year of, oh, the only championship you've won in recent memory is the COVID season when it was a shortened year. Like I said, you can't say that now. They went out and they finally did it. And it wasn't easy. You know, the Padres gave him a tough time. The Mets gave him a tough time. The Yankees just at times beat themselves in the World Series. That definitely could have been a better World Series. But they just, like Joe Kelly said, I believe, they just kicked the ball around. And they did. They did. And questionable decisions. And that could have been a closer World Series. But it wasn't. It wasn't. So it's going to be a big year for the Dodgers. And you know what? They're going to be, as much as it's annoying, they are going to be a fun team to watch. They are. Because of their lineup. And seeing, these Japanese star pitchers with Yamamoto and Sasaki. And eventually when Ohtani comes back. They are going to be a fun team to watch. They are going to be must-see TV. And if you have the MLB package and, your team's not on and you happen to be up late, tune in and watch a little bit of the Dodgers. Because they are going to be a force this upcoming season. But let me know what you guys think, though, about Dave Roberts getting a 4-year extension. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the Dodgers going into the year? They're going to be very good. That's really all I have to say. So we are going to take our final break of the show now. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Arizona Cardinals. I will do a season overview on their season and talk about what they have to do to improve their team. Now, they did make some improvements already. There's one signing that I really like that they made since the free agent period has begun. So we'll get into all that when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and for one final time, we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to take a look back at the Cardinals' 2024 season and what they have to do to improve their team. But, just thinking to myself during the break. So the Steelers brought back Mason Rudolph, obviously. And, they talked about, hey, we were either going to bring back Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. Well, Justin Fields is now not available. So what do? They go and they get a quarterback that previously played for the team. So technically, they still were like, hey, we're going to choose one or the other. Well, you end up bringing back an old friend, and who knows if they bring in anybody else after that. But like I said earlier in the show, if the Steelers go into the year with Mason Rudolph as their quarterback, what are we doing? What are we doing? But that is a topic for another day. Maybe we get into it tomorrow, depending on what happens today. Maybe something big goes down. But the Cardinals, let's get back to the Cardinals. So, the Arizona Cardinals. There were some expectations going into the year. I mean, I didn't think they were going to be very good. I thought they would be better than they were in 2023 because you had Kyler Murray for the whole season. And they ended up finishing 8-9. They missed out on the playoffs. Kyler Murray was back for the whole year. And, 21 touchdowns to 11 picks he had, 3,800 yards passing. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. They were a very good running team last season. They they were, if I have their offensive stats. So, yeah, actually, these are their offensive stats right here. I have them. So, passing yards per game, they were 18th, and then they were 7th in rushing yards per game. They averaged 144.2 rushing yards per game, which is very good. And then they were 11th in total yards per game. So, their offense was not bad. Could have been better, of course, but was not bad. Their defense, though, was the lesser of the two. Total yards per game, they were 21st in the league. They gave up an average of 342.5. Points allowed per game, they were 15th. They were giving up 22.3 points per game. Passing yards allowed per game, they were 14th. Rushing yards allowed per game, they were 20th. They were 13th in the league in sacks, and then 24th in the league in interceptions. So their defense was not very good. They have the 16th pick in the draft. And then, they have a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. And I think they have 2 7s. So, there's some improvements that they can make to the team. Now, the one move I do like that they've made so far is they signed Josh Sweat. That's going to help out the pass rush for this team. I like that move a lot. And I think they gave Budda Baker an extension this offseason. But, yeah, I do like that move for the Cardinals. So they bolster their pass rush. Looking at some of the other players from last year, James Conner had a big year for them. He had over 1,000 yards rushing. He had almost 1,100 yards rushing. He had 8 touchdowns on the year. Kyler Murray had 5 rushing touchdowns. He had 572 rushing yards. He was the second leading rusher on the team. Their leading receiver was Trey McBride, who didn't score a touchdown until the end of the year. But he was a force. 111 receptions. He had 1,146 receiving yards. He's a stud tight end for them, one of the best tight ends in the league. And then you also had Marvin Harrison Jr. in his rookie year campaign. He had 62 receptions for 885 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. Michael Wilson, their other receiver, he had 4 touchdowns. And then looking at the defense, Budda Baker, who we just talked about, he had 1 forced fumble, 2 sacks. Also on the season, he had no interceptions, but he had 5 pass defense. And some of their leading sacks leaders, you had Zaven Collins, he had 5 sacks on the season. Dante Stills had 4.5. But yeah, the Cardinals need to get better at rushing the passer, and Josh Sweat is definitely going to help them out with that. But, Sean Murphy Bunting was their leading guy with interceptions. He had 3 on the season. And then you had Matthew Prater and Chad Ryland both kicking field goals for them this year. And Prater was 6 of 6 and 10 for 10 for extra points. And Chad Ryland was 28 of 32 on field goals, and he was 26 of 27 on extra points. He was actually 4 for 4 on field goals that were 50-plus yards. So that's pretty good. But the Cardinals, they at one point were leading the AFC West. They got off to a tough start against the Bills because, they were winning that game. They were winning by a lot. They were up by, what were they up by? Well, not by a lot. They were up 17-3, but Josh Allen and the Bills came back, won that game 34-28. We actually saw, the first ever kickoff return with the new rules. That was, I think that was DJ Dallas that ran back that kick. But yeah, they lost a close game there. But then, after Marvin Harrison Jr. in week 1, I think he had no catches, right, in his first game? Or no, he had 1 catch for 40 yards. Then in his second game, he had 4 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Cardinals destroyed the Rams. They won 41-10. So you're like, oh, okay, that was unexpected. So they win that, but then they lose their next 2. They lose to the Lions and the Commanders, 2 playoff teams. But then they win that game against the 49ers. Kyler Murray has a big run in that game. They outscore the 49ers 14-0 in the second half. So they improved to 2-3 on the season. But then they end up going to Lambeau Field, and the Packers destroyed them. The Packers won 34-13. But then they won 4 in a row. And they were 6-4 at one point, going into the bye. And you thought, okay, they're looking good right now. But then they proceeded to lose their next 3 games. They lost to Seattle twice, and they also lost to the Vikings by a point. And the Cardinals actually had the lead late, but Sam Darnold, with 1 minute left, he threw a touchdown to Aaron Jones. So that was a tough loss. But then they beat the Patriots. Then they lose that game in overtime to the Panthers. And that was tough. I forget, there was a crucial play that happened in that game. I don't know. I think I forget what happened in the game. But there was either way, the Cardinals, they were playing for a playoff spot. Panthers, just playing for pride. That was a big loss for them. And then they ended up losing to the Rams 13-9. That was close to the end. But, Cardinals ended up losing that. And then, they won the final game of the regular season. And Kyler had 4 touchdowns. And they went 8-9. But they had a chance to win that division. And, like I said, there's a lot they can improve on. They definitely could use another weapon. The defense just needs a lot of work. I think this is another team that I think could go defensive heavy, or maybe they take a receiver with their first selection, or they take a receiver in the second round. But, tight end, they're fine. Quarterback, we've heard that Kyler Murray has been in trade rumors. So, I don't know, how true that is. But, they could use another pass catcher. Defense needs a lot of work. But, yeah, with the Cardinals, though, do you move off of Kyler Murray? Where are the Cardinals going with Kyler Murray? It just seems like every year, you think like, hey, look, this could be the year for the Cardinals, and then they fall flat. So how long is it going to be before they decide they want to go in a different direction? I don't know. But I think Kyler at times looked good, but also at times he doesn't look so good. So I don't know. I still think he's a decent quarterback, but I think his ceiling is limited. I think we're now well into his career. We kind of know what he is at this point. Still looking for that first playoff win. He's only had 1 playoff game, and it was really bad against the Rams when the Rams went on and won the Super Bowl. So, we'll see what this year brings. But the Cardinals are not a bad team. They improved from 2023. I think I had them around, what did I have them at? I have them at like 6 wins, I think. And they won 8. And you figured, they swept the 49ers and, they beat up on the Rams. Hey, could this be their year? No. They ended up losing twice to Seattle. They have a problem with Seattle for some reason. They let Zach Charbonnet. I actually forgot to bring that up. I did bring up them losing to Seattle twice, but they let Zach Charbonnet run all over them in that second game when they lost 30-18. How many yards does Charbonnet have? He had 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Seahawks ran for almost 200 yards in that game. They ran for 176 yards. So, defense needs some work. The offense, you had another playmaker or two, and we'll see. And there are some receivers out there, so maybe that's a potential destination for Cooper Kupp. So, you got him out there. Stephon Diggs is out there. Keenan Allen. even though Keenan Allen has his sights set on LA or the Bears again. But, the Cardinals really haven't been that active in free agency so far, other than the Josh Sweat move, which, again, that's a move I liked. So we'll see. There's still some other guys out there that they can go out and get. But let me know what you guys think about the Cardinals and their season. There's a lot they can improve on. Pass rush, secondary, linebackers. I mean, that they could address all that. That definitely needs some more. And if they could really improve their defense, they could be even better. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Cardinals in the comments. And with that, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and comment as well. Try to get to the comments if you do comment. And yeah, until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit.